Adriana, I decided to make a video because I have so many things to say that this just seemed like the easiest way. So first of all, what a fantastic amount of work you have done. I couldn't believe it when I opened up your Dropbox and saw 4 versions. That's amazing. I changed the colors and the sizes a little bit just so that I could read it more easily. So don't worry, obviously it's not going to affect the one that's saved on your hard drive. So first of all, the rule of your function, if I just open it up here, it's fine except you're missing parameter b. You've got the slider for b, but you don't have it in your actual rule. And because of that, everything works. Like if I go and move the sliders around, everything works just fine until I start changing the value of b. Right now it's 1. So if I change it to anything else, you can see that the points don't stick anymore. That can be fixed, I'm pretty sure, with a single thing, and that is if you just go into your function rule when you just double click on it and type in the b. Make sure you put a bracket around the x minus h so that the b is factored out. And then let's just see if I do that here. You see now things are sticking even if I change b, no matter what number I change it to. So that's the first thing. Put the b into your rule, make sure it's factored out. Next thing is your text box up here. It's got the b in it, which is great, so you had it in there. It's just that that's not the one that controls the graph. The other thing is instead of typing the actual letter A here, like let me go back, like in this rule, no matter what I make A and B and H and K, this text box isn't changing, and it should be changing. It needs to have, instead of the letter A, the current value of A. So to do that, instead of typing the letter A here in your text box, you go to this Objects pull-down menu and you select the little A in the little box there. And so just to show you how that looks, now you can see that in the text box, whatever the current value of A is, that's what it's going to put into your text box. And you're going to do the same thing with the B, the H, and the K. So I'll let you do the rest of that. The next thing I want to say about your text box is just a suggestion. By the way, nice checkbox. That's fine. That's a bonus mark right there. It looks fine, and once you get your B and your H and your K in there, it's fine. You don't have to take the suggestion I'm about to make, but the rule looks a little nicer if you use something called LaTeX, and you've got it right here in the text box tool. So I'm just going to show you how it works. If you click on this box, then this pull-down menu comes available, and it offers all of these different math notation things. It gives you a way to just make them look a lot neater in your text box. So the first one is roots and fractions. So if you just click on the root x, up here, I'm just going to get rid of this just so you can see. Up here on the top, you'll see the strange square root x with the curly brackets. That is LaTeX code. So GeoGebra has generated that for you. And down below here, actually you can't really see because your text box is yellow. Hang on, I'm going to change the color of it just so you can see. Okay, made it red just so we can see it. So up above is the code, and down below where it says preview, it shows you how that's going to look when you're finished typing in your text box. So right now it looks very similar to what you had before, except that this square root thing is actually covering the x. And the thing is, if I were to add stuff, I'm just going to click inside the curly brackets up above. If I were to add, x plus 5 or 3x or whatever, watch what happens. I'm actually just going to add the b. You see how now the square root line extends over the entire 2.65x. And you can keep on adding stuff, like if you wanted to add, for example, x minus h. Find your h object there. Again, you see the square root line is extended now. And if you want to add your k, just go outside of the curly brackets. So, like I said, you don't have to change this. It's just a suggestion. It just, I find it looks a little nicer. Next, about this text box here. I suspect this is the text box that you want to show up when there is no zero. So for example, like when k goes negative, you want that text box to show up and say there's no zero for this function. Well, right now it's showing up whether or not there is one. So you need to go into the properties for that text box. So right click on it, go into object properties. And then this is where you put the condition to show the object. When is there no zero? Well, as you've got in your text box, when a times k is greater than 0, we'll have that message showing up that there is no zero. So right now there is a 0 and we're not seeing that text box. But if I make k go negative, there's no 0, and that message is showing up saying that there is no 0. So that's great, that's working. So that's how you're going to have to fix that. Now, about the actual 0 itself. I'm seeing it here. It's in the right place all of the time here, but when there is no 0, it's still showing up. So you need to go into this, you do kind of the same thing for that point as you just did for the text box. Go into its properties. Now when do we want to see the 0? Like right now we don't want to see it because it shouldn't exist. But when do we want to see it? Well, we want to see it, for example, when a times k gives a negative result. In other words, when they are of opposite signs, because that's when there's going to be a 0. So you notice it just disappeared, which is what it should do, but as soon as I make k positive, it's showing up again. So that's something you need to change about the point C, or your 0. Your domain and your range text boxes, those two should be changing as the sliders get changed. So for example, right now the domain would be from negative 2.05 till infinity, right? Because my graph starts there and the x starts at negative 2.05 and goes till positive infinity. So again, you would want your text box to have not just the letter H, but the object H involved. And instead of typing out the word infinity, I'll just show you, you can use the symbols thing. I think infinity is in here somewhere. Oh, there it is, yep. So you can use that, just looks a little nicer. Don't forget to put brackets on your H. So there you go. So again, like when I change my H, it's going to change the value for the domain. And the same thing is true for the range. K is involved, but you want to make it the object K. Now that's the first thing. The next thing is, if I make the graph go off to the left instead of to the right, the domain will no longer start at H and go to infinity. It should end at H. So you're going to have to make another text box that says that. So basically that the domain is equal to negative, I'll find infinity here, infinity, up until H. So right now, of course you're going to want to make that yellow, I'm sure. So right now, you know, whatever I change my H to, the domain text box says what it should say. But the thing is now, when do you want this domain text box to show up, and when do you want the other one to show up? You have to figure out when you want each of those to appear. So once again, you'll have to go into the conditions to show the object. So for this one over here, under what condition is the domain starting at the vertex? Well, that I'm going to let you think about. And same thing for this one, under what condition does the domain end at the vertex? And then all of what I just said is true for the range as well. Sometimes the range starts at k, as you've got here, and sometimes it ends at k. Finally, the text box about the y-intercept. Same thing as what I said for the 0 one. You want to pick the conditions under which that text box will show up. Like right now it should be showing up because there is no y-intercept. But when I change my h, that text box should disappear because there is a y-intercept right now. And by the way, your formula for the y-intercept, also good, also perfect. So you need to work on that. And also, of course, no, I was going to say change the letter h to object h, but that's not necessarily the